I went on the long spiel a couple weeks ago, and everyone loved it because Christian Horner is everyone's favorite team principal to hate. Fair enough. Red Bull is starting to fail on every damn aspect when it comes to racing in F1 right now. Minus they have the best driver on the track. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Around the Circuit, Apollo Media's Formula One podcast. As always, I'm Junior, joined by my boys Mark and Ivan, talking Will with y'all. Bahrain Grand Prix has all came and gone. I can say Ivan's promise that it was gonna be way better than Suzuka, the Japanese Grand Prix, and it did. He lived up to his promise. We got a very entertaining race. Nothing too crazy. No big crashes. No big, red flags or anything like that. But we did have an entertaining race. A lot of fights. A lot of overtakes as promised. Oscar came out on top. Piastri wins. He's the first repeat winner of 2025 season. And then we wrapped up the podium. It was George P2. And Lando managed to pass both Ferraris and secure the double podium for McLaren to wrap it up at P3. I feel like...
Can we address the elephant in the room?
The elephant in the room?
Setup?
The new setup.
The new setup?
Yeah, real quick, boys. Welcome to our humble abode, ATC. If y'all like the new flags behind us, the new setup, let us know what you think. We put a little work into it, and we'll adjust as we go, for future episodes. If y'all want any input or what we could add, let us know. We'll put some things in there to kind of spice it up.
We are in search of a Haas flag. If anybody wants to find us some Haas merch
and Williams
merch. Apparently over here that's a little bit hard to get. I can find a Renault flag from Argentina, but I can't find any Williams or Haas gear for some reason.
Yeah, but Bahrain was fun. I think everybody had some kind of drama or fighting or issue, minus Oscar Piastri. And he finished, 15 seconds in the lead almost?
Yeah.
When it came time for it.
Barely saw him finish.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't see him finish.
Not at all.
On that, the broadcast was...
Weird.
I
thought George Russell had died at one point.
George Russell was done for. He dropped down to P20 and jumped back up to P2 all within 3 seconds. I was watching while at a youth baseball game. So the audio was not the best for me. I was very confused when I saw the George dropping on the standings.
Quick.
I thought my prayer on somebody's downfall had come true. But no, it was the broadcast was weird. They had us watching Oscar finish the race in the small box while we watched Lando attempt to overtake George, which was never going to happen anyways. And then we didn't even see Max's overtake in the final lap of taking over Pierre Gasly for P6. It was weird. Broadcast was very weird. I know that's been the talk of the town in the F1 world. After that race, there was some just questionable moments when you were wondering who's running these cameras. But I mean, it's hard to go into it without talking about some of the headlines coming out of it. I mean, Oscar wins. He is, my opinion, fully in this championship fight. We figured it was going to be both McLarens versus Max. George Russell is right there. George Russell has finished top 5 in every race so far this season. Mercedes building a little bit of a fast car after Lewis leaves is...
I'm pissed. Livid.
Is something. But y'all's key points for me, my biggest key point is, and we'll get into it a little bit. I'm not going to go off right now. I'm going to let the boys talk. Is the drama coming out of it. It's always Red Bull. And I'm not going to go too much into it because we've already covered this. But something's not clicking there. Your key moment of the race, Mark?
I would say Lando passing Leclerc. I mean, Leclerc defended like crazy for almost 16 laps with Lando behind him in the rocket ship. And Leclerc, with that Ferrari, he was able to defend it for a long time. Fortunately, he wasn't able to come home with the win like I predicted or the podium. But, I mean, it was a great effort by Leclerc considering, the situation he was in. But, I'll give my props to Lando. I don't really understand that much of the Lando hate. I kind of understand it. He is kind of like, he's a crybaby at some times, but I don't understand the majority of the hate. But I mean, yeah. What was it? What was it? P6 to begin.
Started P6, finished P3,
and finished P3. Props to him, man. He was able to come back with the podium, which is important for McLaren for the constructors championship and maybe even potentially the drivers championship. I mean, it was able to keep him ahead of Verstappen. Yeah. Considering how bad of a race Verstappen had, which you will get to later.
Yeah.
For me, the key moment of the race was Carlos Sainz losing a quarter of his car. That brought out the safety car for the race. It was one of those weird ones where you thought, okay, they're just going to go send someone out there to go pick up the debris or do a virtual safety car. No, they just elected to do the full safety car, and that kind of threw me off and threw everybody else off in the race. Speaking of what you were going to talk about later, kind of helped your boy out there for real, because that safety car, after the shenanigans that Red Bull pulled on both of Verstappen's stops in the race, that kind of like gave him the opportunity to at least get back in the points and finish in a decent position where he wasn't, devastated for today. So
Absolutely.
Carlos having a crater in the side of his car and having to retire, probably saved the moment of the race for me.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, as a Carlos fan, obviously y'all know Max is my guy. I mean, you see the hat, but I like my number 2 driver that I love to watch is Carlos. I love what's happening at Williams for the most part. They had a little bit of a rough race this time. Albon finished outside the points. Carlos obviously had that run-in with Yuki and had to retire, unfortunately. And then on top of it, he had a 10-second penalty for pushing Kimi off the track, which I think kind of hurt Kimi's race. And we'll get into the rookies here in a second, because I think the rookies, to me, is probably the second biggest moment of the race, because you mean they're just performing. I think they're performing, and I think Carlos is just, he ran into bad luck. He started well, he got off well. It just he couldn't keep up with the rest of them. Yeah, I think Williams is just, he qualified well, but Williams just doesn't have the race pace to keep up with the big dogs yet.
Yeah,
but I think they're on their way. I mean, it sucked to see Carlos have to retire the car, but they're well on their way. The rookies, though, Kimi, I won't say he had a bad race. I know that was kind of my moment for a second. I was like, man, Kimi had his first bad race finally. But I wouldn't even say that. He just had a bad qualifying, and then he had that really good overtake over Verstappen.
Yeah.
And then he had that moment out of the pits after, I think it was his second stop. He came out, and then that's when Carlos locked up, almost hit him, pushed him out wide, and he was just never able to fully recover after that, from what it seemed. Red Bull, though, maybe they had the right idea when it came to Liam, because Liam had another terrible race. He finished P17, and he two penalties. It was a 5-second and a 10-second penalty for causing a collision. I don't know who the first one was, but I know the second one was on Nico Hülkenberg. And I mean, you finished the race with 15 seconds worth of penalties. P17. I know we don't like Helmut Marko, but maybe he was right in this instance. It's still early. We'll see. I mentioned that same statement last week. I don't know, man. I just don't think Liam's got it, and I would like to see him prove me wrong, but I don't think it's there. But my rookie is your boy, Mark.
I already know.
My rookie of the race, man. My rookie of the race is your boy,
Ollie. Him.
I'll let you go off, because I mean, to jump 10 places and finish in the points.
Dude, it was. I loved it. I loved it every second. I mean, you watch qualifying, and he had such a bad qualifying. I was so upset. I was like, man, after having such a great race last week, and then you come out in qualifying, and it's just absolutely terrible at the bottom in 20th. I was like, okay, man, let's see what he can do with it. And he absolutely, both Haas, double points for Haas.
Yeah.
Ocon P8, right?
Ocon
P9.
was P7.
P7. Better than I thought. Yeah, I mean, Ollie at P10 bringing back points after starting P20. It's just an amazing race from Ollie.
Great race from the rookies. Even Antonelli, I'll give shouts out to. Kind of a weird strategy they put him on as a rookie. I know it worked out for George, but obviously George is a veteran. I don't know about putting a rookie. I mean, you even saw with Oscar a couple years ago where it took him a couple years to develop, having to not wear down the tires immediately. So to put a rookie in race 4 on soft tires may have been a questionable decision. But to me, it also kind of speaks like how much they trust him. They're like, no, we trust you. You're not going to do anything bad. So to see if it works out for you too. For me, the rookie that impressed me, keeps impressing me, is Jack Doohan. Jack Doohan is really keeping up and proving that it's not just going to be 6 races and done, it looks like.
Yeah.
Now, if he doesn't slow down these accident rates, we may have to have another conversation. But at a team where everybody knows, and it's the sad part, but everybody knows it's just a ticking time clock. They're waiting on the big mistake or the big incidents to be like, or the string of races where he doesn't score for them to get him out of there and get Franklin in the car. Obviously, he knows that, and kudos to him because, I mean, that's pressure unlike any other driver has on the grid right now.
Yeah.
I mean, Liam kind of went through that earlier this year, but, I mean, it was thought that Liam at least was going to get a couple of chances, but when you finish dead last in back-to-back races, or 3 out of 3 races in a row technically, you ain't going to save your spot. So the rookies all been doing good. What you said earlier with Liam, I do agree that I want him to succeed, but at the same time, he's not really doing a great job in that new car that really RB was completely anonymous this whole weekend. That was kind of a weird thing too. A team that's been consistent throughout the entire year and at a track where all the drivers did their testing here for preseason. It really didn't make any sense how out of nowhere they struggled there.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think everybody struggled. The tire deg was really weird for everyone this year at this track. I don't know what it was. I know the temperatures during practice were much higher during the actual race, and so they didn't have a lot of information when it came to that. But I don't know. I think when you've seen some of the veterans struggling the way they did, it's no surprise that the rookies did.
Yeah.
Now, we mentioned all the other rookies pretty much except for Gabriel Bortoleto. Is he disappointing so far? I mean, he's in a kick Sauber. So you can only expect so much in that car. It doesn't look good. It's the slowest car on the track by far. I mean, Nico's managed to get it into points once, but the car just isn't good. But as the F2 champion from last year, do you expect more, or do you what? As the team, they're probably like, okay, he's doing what he can, but he hasn't had the best of finishes. Is he disappointing?
I mean, it's definitely a tricky question because you could go both ways. You could look at Ollie. You could be like, oh, well, he's in a Haas and he's able to put like these good performances. But at the same time, like you said, it's the Kick Sauber. It's not a good car. I would say it's slightly disappointing. You would think maybe he'd be able to get something out of that car, but I wouldn't put too much pressure on him this early in the season in the car that he's in.
Yeah, I mean, this word is being thrown around a lot this season since every team is so close to each other. That is the real tractor on the track.
Yeah.
Out of every single car on the grid, that is the legit tractor on the grid. So for me, it's kind of hard to evaluate him just because, man, he really ain't got a chance to be showing anything because they've made improvements. But somebody put it like this weekend: you made the car from terrible to bad. You're not improving a lot, but you're making the car better. They even asked him this weekend if he thought the car has improved from testing in the preseason, and he said, "I'm not seeing the improvement," and everybody else is showing him times. The car is getting better. I think if it's a bad situation, it's going to be hard to evaluate him probably till mid-season. You're going to need something.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I think you just got to give him time. I don't think he's doing bad. I just think he could be doing a little bit better, but I mean, there are multiple drivers who haven't scored. What does it think? It's all rookies and Fernando Alonso are the only drivers that haven't scored so far this season. So even when a person that's been in this sport for 2 decades can't score a point, you're not doing that far. You're not doing that bad off, at least.
That's true. So while you're still hot, Ivan, do you want to take a moment to give some kudos to your boy, Pierre Gasly?
Yes, I do.
And the Alpine team?
Yes, they listened to my speech, it looks like, because, man, that car looked different this week. I was so proud of them. I had to even pull out the flag again. Oh, shoot, Did I bring the flag? Oh, no. You know what? Forget it. I'm going to forget the flag like they forgot the slow pace back in Japan. Because, man, I was shocked by them, to be honest. Like I said, that engine is still the slowest engine on the grid. And I know he got passed by Max, what is it, the last lap of the race or anything like that for, P6? Yeah. So, I mean, he could have finished better, but when you're at Alpine, that's one of the better results you're going to have all year. Gasly, to me, is still, even besides me being an Alpine fan, he is one of the more underrated drivers on the grid. He can drag a car that does not deserve to even be anywhere in the top 10 to somehow P7. That team actually impressed me this race because both him and Doohan did good. And it's showing that the car is improving and getting better. Mm-hmm. They're showing that they belong in the fight for the mid-pack now and not in the back. Honestly, it kind of seems like them and Aston Martin kind of switched places this year. Yeah. Aston Martin's the one that's like going to be struggling and need a miracle race in the wet to get some points. And Alpine can get points whenever the car comes together. Mm-hmm. I'm proud of this team, man. They putting everything together. Them next year in Mercedes engines, like I said, is exciting me because that engine issues that they've been having currently is no longer going to be an issue, and they can just focus on developing the car. So, yeah, shout out. I live blues. I love my team at Alpine. It's not the easiest team to root for, but as all three of us were talking before we got in here, we all got problems with our teams right now. It's just different problems in different areas.
So, with that, Mark, I'll move on to you. Your Ferrari boys. They didn't look bad. They could have done better. I know they were struggling. I mean, they were this close to the podium. This close. Charles had it. Hamilton, he was up there, but it seemed like they're still just lacking that like extra bit of pace to keep them up there with the top two teams right now. I predicted Lewis to be driver of the day last week. Came true. One point for me. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely an okay race. I mean, considering how you started the season, it's definitely a step up, baby steps, I guess, for the rest of the season you need for this Ferrari team. But I mean, I came out of it with, decently happy, looking forward to the future and the next couple of races, especially with Lewis and his mindset. You look at Lewis after the race, his mindset, especially when he was on talking to the team on the radio, just complimenting the team. It was good to hear that. He almost seemed disappointed, like he expected more out of the car. And, I mean, you saw Charles struggled to keep it in P3 for as long as he did. Ended up finishing P4. So, I guess my question would be, he's disappointed because he wants to win. Oh, yeah. Obviously, it's every driver on the track, especially the ones in top teams like Ferrari. But is there something on the car? Like, they ran upgrades this week, didn't they? So maybe he expect a little bit more out of it? Or I think both of them are always going to expect a little more out of that Ferrari. Yeah. You're a top team, top engine, and you're expecting to be up there battling for podiums, and you just haven't been so far this season. I mean, like you said, Charles, he was battling for the podium. Unfortunately, Lando and the McLaren came up and finally, after 60 laps, was able to pass him. Right now, I'm just taking it as baby steps. Yeah, it's still decently new, everything with Lewis and everything. But to see that positive with just Lewis complimenting the team over the radio on how they handled the race in pit stops and strategy. I mean, going to George, I mean, what was it, 23 laps on the softs in the race. I thought like, oh my god, is this gonna run out? And I saw people like hating on Ferrari, the strategy again, of course, like, but I was like, I mean, they just went with the default. I think the biggest question was, and the biggest hiccup I would say they had, because I mean they had the fastest pit stop again this race. That's 4 races in a row. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest hiccup was they saw how Red Bull struggled on the hards, and they still put them. Was it Charles? They still put Charles on hards. I think so, yeah. And so it makes you wonder, like, why would you do that? I mean, granted, Red Bull in their struggles right now, maybe they thought they had a little bit of advantage over them and could still run the hards. But I would say overall that was like the one hickey, one bruise. Yeah, it just seems like they went to the default. The default strategy and thought, okay, like they struggled, but we should be fine. And I mean, they were okay, but they weren't fine to compete for a podium and to compete for better places. Overall, not a bad weekend considering how the beginning of the season's been.
I'm excited to see where we go from here.
Yeah.
One second. I didn't mean to cut you off, Junior, but like for Ferrari, for me, their strategy, it seemed like Charles wanted to go with the one stop, which hindsight's 2020, obviously, but it looks like Ferrari actually made the right call there because the safety car that came out later would have just destroyed his one-stop strategy and all the pace that he had gained in between there. So, I don't know, Ferrari this weekend made some decent calls.
Yeah.
Like, they went with the default strategy, what a lot of people did. Like, anybody who's had watched multiple races knows if you're expecting a soft tire to last 20 laps and you have a hard tire on,
especially on the way the track was on tire deck this week,
you're expecting that soft tire to wear out probably about 10 or 15 laps, and then all right, cool, I'll cruise at the end because you won't have any grip left on those tires. So I think Ferrari did pretty good considering they brought a new floor this weekend. I mean, everything went better for them. If you would have told me before this weekend that a team is going to have troubles in the pits on both drivers, multiple stops, and it's not Ferrari, I would have said, what the? Nah, ain't no way. But that happened this weekend. So I think Ferrari had a good weekend. I just think anytime it's Ferrari, it's always magnetized. So that's what's going to happen anytime Ferrari does any mistake. So I think they're okay. They're moving in the right direction now. Just kind of keep the forward momentum because you don't have a lot of time to figure out this car. You probably got, 2 races max before you have to like start scoring big time points now?
Man, do I want to start now? Before we get into Red Bull, because you did mention the pit stops.
Yeah.
We'll talk about McLaren because McLaren's obviously the fastest car on the track right now. They've won 3 races out of 4.
Yeah.
Yes.
They've won 3 out of 4.
It's looking like they're going to run away with the Constructors' Championship. Barring some weird upgrade that takes them backwards and Mercedes or Ferrari going nuts on an upgrade, it's looking like it's McLaren's to lose when it comes to Constructors' Championship. And it's starting to almost look like it's going to be theirs to lose when it comes to the Drivers' Championship. Now, we know how Zach Brown operates. We know how, Andrea Stella operates. We saw all the remarks going back and forth between Max and the team. I think Max is playing a little, psychological warfare there, kind of throwing out. I think it was Crofty had said something about, they shouldn't take the bait. This is, Max is smart on and off the track. And I kind of think the same, like, he's doing what he can because he knows that Oscar's young and Lando, people might hate me for it, but Lando doesn't have the mentality of a champion right now. I think he's too focused on being the nice guy. He's too focused on, he reminds me of some of the little league kids I used to coach in like baseball and stuff. Like they make a mistake, they're the hardest ones on themselves. Naturally, a competitor is kind of not hard on themselves, but he takes it to another level where he's just, it's affecting his performance. He's got the fastest car on the grid, and he qualifies P6. And then he has the false start because he parked over the box. Shout out Max for locking the fuck in and seeing that as soon as he pulled in. I watched the video. I know you sent us the picture, but
his eyes were straight.
As he's pulling in, his head turns and he instantly. Max is a genius on the track. Say what you want. He might be a terrorist at times, but he's a genius on the track. But as soon as he pulled up, he said, "Wait a minute." Checked his steering wheel, made sure everything's good on his end, double checked and said, "Gotcha." It went full.
He literally
Randall
did a double
from
take
recess and said, "Lando is past his box."
He did a double take. He
said,
went down, pressed the radio, looked back up to double check and said, "Gotcha."
Yep. And I couldn't help but laugh when you sent the picture because it's like somebody was like, "Man, Max is a snitch," and it's like, you as a racer, you take every advantage you can. That's who's ahead of you at the start. You're gonna do what you can.
And like they weren't gonna see it afterwards.
They would have seen it anyways. But it was just so funny to see. As soon as the car pulled in, he said, "Bow, gotcha." But I want to ask y'all, and this is kind of a weird question: is Lando Norris the weakest link at McLaren right now?
That's tough.
When it comes to winning championships, and you look at the other driver setups, other teams, when you look at the car they have and you look at the way they've operated and built this car up over the last few years, is he the weakest link now? Considering how Oscar's performing?
I mean, that's tough. I mean, I like Lando. There are some times where I don't like Lando, but I'm not gonna go full on go hate Lando.
Okay.
But I mean, I definitely think as of right now, he's the weaker driver. I wouldn't say he's the weakest link, but he's definitely the weaker driver of the two. I think weakest link is kind of like a harsh saying, like very harsh. But I think Lando is still a good driver, but if he doesn't get out of his own way, he could definitely like that become a weakest link. I think right now he can turn the page and fight for the drivers championship, but
I mean, he's still in the lead.
yeah,
so
he's still in
technically.
the lead. Like I said, what getting on that podium was huge for him, not just for the constructors, but for his own drivers championship. But he needs to get out of his own way, stop doubting himself, stop being hard on himself, like you said, and lock in, brother. Max Verstappen is not gonna stand back and watch McLaren take all these points. Like Max Verstappen is gonna do his thing, and he's gonna come back. And if you don't do your thing, either him or your buddy Oscar is gonna take away this drivers' championship from you.
So here's what I say, and I know it's always a world if like Max said once, if my mom had balls, she'd be my dad.
Yeah,
But Oscar is a spin-off away in Australia from being in the lead of the championship right now. You know, and they both went off. So if Lando didn't get the car, you know, it could have gone either way when they both went off like that in Australia.
And I would say that's the one thing. Like you look back on that race and the way Lando handled that race in the rain after every restart. That's what gets me like, okay, I know you can be a good driver.
Absolutely.
And in situations like, but it's like you have to prove me in equal terms when you have the rocket ship. Like show me that you can be the guy at McLaren and win the championship.
Okay, Ivan.
Agree mostly with what Mark said. I'll start it off like this. So the way I view Lando, honestly, it's kind of the same way I view Liam. You're a great talent. You have skill. But things you have said or done have not helped the way people view you in this sport. We talked about Liam with his, feuds with every Spanish speaker on the grid. Lando, first off, if there's one group you don't make mad on the grid, it's Team LH. Don't piss them off. So you already have a good 20 million people already not liking you right off the bat right there because of the comments he made to Lewis in the cool down room last year whenever he said, we have the fastest car now. You had your time, when Lewis was just trying to congratulate him. His comments towards,
I remember that.
Yeah, towards, people saying like, well, wait till we get the fastest car. It's just whoever's in the fastest car does best. That's why I think a lot of people kind of have a hard time feeling sorry for him. For me, I like Lando a lot. I just think, like you said, he gets in his own way too many times. I do think Oscar has passed him up as a driver, but he's not the weakest link. To me, the weakest link at the team is honestly the rest of the team. Not with pit crew or nothing like that, but the thing about this team is that when they're close to each other, Oscar and Lando, they can't make a decision. They don't want either one of them to get in front and say, hey, let your teammate buy, he'll let you buy back. They don't even want to give either one of them the opportunity because of Hungary last year. So they're kind of like shell-shocked anytime they're next to each other, like, what do we do? What do we do? So Oscar's pretty much figured out, shoot, if I just get ahead of them, they can't do nothing then.
So do you put this more on because no other team functions this way? McLaren has Zach Brown as the CEO and then a separate team principal. I think for the most part, most of the team principals are head of the team, right?
Yes.
But when you look at McLaren, it's Andrea Stella's team principal, Zach Brown's CEO. And I'd have to look at some of the other teams to see if I'm wrong for sure or not. But top teams, that's how it is, right?
Yeah.
Is it Zach Brown or is it Andrea Stella making those decisions? I mean, I know Zach says Andrea does his thing and he's just there to oversee and, take the credit because we see him on the podium. He was the only, Andrea Stella wasn't even at F1, 75 Live. But regardless, so who would you put it on when it comes to making those decisions or lack thereof making those decisions?
You want to go first, Mark? You want me to get it?
You can take this one.
I'm just trying to dive into McLaren because they should be running away with this way more than they are. Now, granted, Mercedes has surprised, I think, everybody. But I feel like they should be running away with this way more than they are. And so this early in the season, Does this bite them later on in the season if they can't figure that little bit out? The little things.
For me, I think honestly, it's probably Mark Webber's fault. I do think that there is something going on there with Mark Webber. For those who don't know, is Oscar Piastri's manager. And you would say, what does a manager have to do with a team? He used to drive for Red Bull. Long story short, multi-21. Just look up the incident that happened with Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber, Piastri's agent, and you'll find out a lot of reasons why Oscar cannot be a number 2 driver.
I can't.
With the manager that he has, he can't be. So the only reason I feel like they're even saying we have 2 number 1 drivers, and this is something we hadn't got a chance to get to, but Lando all week has been saying, we don't have the fastest car, we have the fastest drivers. What the heck does Oscar say after the race? No, we got the fastest car. There's no doubt about that. We got the fastest car. Literally throwing down the gauntlet saying like, no, don't backpedal from this fight. Don't say we ain't got the fastest car. No, I'm beating you right now.
It's little things right now. By summer break, I can't wait to see if they're just in full-blown like fight mode. Like full-blown, like you said, Vettel and Weber going at it. Because why not, right?
To me, it's kind of like you were talking about with like Little League. It's like the dad who's living his life through his kid, but this time it's a driver who sees a second chance at his F1 life again through Oscar, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna make sure I protect you from everything that Seb put me through."
Yeah.
Because, like I said, if you go look up the incidents and what Seb put that man through, this man had to retire at our top team like Red Bull just because he was tired of dealing with being the second driver at Red Bull because Vettel, even though he was a 4-time champion, wouldn't give him an inch of space. And I think that's exactly what he's ironically telling Oscar to do. Don't you give Lando anything. You beat him in qualifying. You beat him in practice. You prove to them that there's no option. You can't say, hey, let's switch spots. No, you're ahead of him by 6 seconds. Catch up.
Hell of a mentor, though, right?
Right? I do think he's the one that's kind of holding McLaren's hand, being like, all right, McLaren wants to be like, okay, let's help Lando because he's our veteran driver. Mark Webber in the corner in the garage, like, that ain't gonna happen under my watch. So I feel like he's the one behind the scenes that's kind of mucking everything up for McLaren, to be honest.
I could see it. I could definitely see it.
Is it time?
It's time, man. It's time. I'm not gonna go too crazy because I had this rant. I called Christian Horner a fool. I still think it's true. You know, I went on the long spiel a couple weeks ago, and everyone loved it because Christian Horner is everyone's favorite team principal to hate. Fair enough. Red Bull is starting to fail on every damn aspect when it comes to racing in F1 right now. Minus they have the best driver on the track, and Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton is a legend. He's the GOAT essentially right now. I mean, the only other one that rivals him in championships is Michael Schumacher. The best driver of this generation is Max Verstappen. He's on the grid and he's proved it time and time again. 4-time world champion. But other than that, Red Bull is fucking failing. They're failing. There's no other way to put it. Red Bull is failing because they're screwing up pit stops. We had a 4.7 pit stop in the first stop, 6.2 in the second. The first one, I'll give it. Maybe it wasn't their fault. Somebody sabotaged. Nah, it wasn't sabotage. I made that joke during the race because the light screwed up. So Max got stuck there. The stop went great, but then he sat there for a few seconds. It still wasn't fast because he paused for a second, and then they released him anyways. Light was blinking yellow, never turned green like it was supposed to. Yuki came in a couple laps later, did the same thing. Cool. They fixed the light, is what it is. But then he comes in and they can't get the wheel off. They've lost some of their big guys already. They lost Wheatley. They lost Newey.
Who Red Bull last year said didn't matter, but as you're seeing now, kind of did matter,
The car is terrible. I don't know what magic that white livery put into the car in Suzuka and Max's magic that he did to put that car on pole. Granted, especially in Suzuka where it was hard to pass, the clean air was key. Once he got on pole, it's like Monaco. Nobody's passing, you know what I mean? Once you're on pole in a race like that, it's hard to change. So the Max doing what he did in qualifying was just outstanding when you look back at it a week later. But do you go to a track like this, The brakes are overheating. They had to change the brakes after qualifying because it gave them so much issue during qualifying. The tires aren't there. I went back and I'm a psycho, so I like to go back and watch onboards. I went back and watched some of the clips of Max's onboard. The car doesn't turn.
I saw that too.
They're failing, and now they're starting to go in full panic mode because I know y'all seen it. I seen it. I'm sure most of you F1 fans saw it. The reports spilled out. Ted Kravitz was talking about on Sky TV right after the race. Max's agent laid into Helmut Marko. We don't know what was said. We know he went in on him, and according to Ted, Helmut just stood there and took it. And then you see the interviews. Max don't even want to talk to the team at the minute. He wants to cool down and just kind of reset. And I've seen some stuff later that he was like, okay, he's like, I'm not going anywhere. We're going to fix this. I got, he even said it after Suzuka. He's like, we're going to push together forward. He, like anyone, once you're mad, you want to take a second to reset. But Helmut has been saying, hey, man, we might need to start worrying about this exit clause that Max has in his contract. Because I don't know how true it is. I need to dive into it. We know how secretive F1 contracts are. But from what I saw, is that as soon as he drops out of the top 3 of the championship races, of the championship standings, he can activate that clause and leave without having to pay out anything on his contract. I believe it. Now, I think he leaves Red Bull eventually, and we've talked about this. I don't think he's going to leave. He's not going anywhere in the middle of the season. He's going to finish out the season. It's questionable whether he leaves next year or not. But the heat is on, and they have to find some way to figure it out because they keep talking about these upgrades that are coming, and there's even more pressure on the engineers to make these upgrades work. As a Max Verstappen fan and Red Bull fan right now, it worries me that they're going to rush these and they're going to come out and they're going to do the exact opposite of what they're supposed to. Because, I don't know. I mean, I think they're relying, and you talked about it briefly. Mm-hmm. I think it was last week or week before. They're relying on that TD to slow down McLaren.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, then what do you do? You know what I mean? Like,
they're still banking on that right now.
And they are, and I can only hope that the upgrades that they have coming are gonna fix it. Because I told a friend of mine today, we were talking about Max and him possibly leaving because all these reports are spilling out. His agent's going off on Helmut Marko. There's growing fear within the team that Max is gonna leave. Max came out. I don't know if it was. I guess it was today. There was a report that came out today where he was like, "Look, I'm not going anywhere right now. I'm focused on getting better." And that's how Max, people can say what he wants. He's a terrorist on the track, but off track, Max is. I've never met him, but everything points to he's a nice guy and he wants to work with the team to make the car better. Because I honestly think he would rather stay than go to another team, especially going to new regulations. But like I said, my friend earlier, they're relying heavily on these upgrades, and they're relying heavily on the TD to possibly slow down McLaren. And if that doesn't work, come summer break, then we could start possibly hearing a lot of noise. Yeah. It's hard to see where they were in 2023, where they dominated. And, I mean, we know how fast things can turn around in F1, but so drastically in a year, less than a year and a half, the car is struggling to, pass an Alpine. It's almost on par with the Haas right now. We were struggling to get past Ocon for a while. Like, Max Verstappen is dragging this car past to having to fight this car to get past a Haas and an Alpine. That's where the Red Bull is at right now. If it tells you anything. And kudos to those teams for building their car up. What the fuck are we doing?
What a disastrous 2 seasons.
It's been rough. And, I'm not going to go off anymore. We'll wait till summer break before I really get into any more rants in the next few weekends. Because it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
I would hold your breath on that one because, trust me, as a partial Ferrari fan, sometimes these teams find ways to disappoint you. So just get you mentally prepared for that.
That's fair.
Red Bull for me is Mark's going to talk about this probably more than I can, so I'm going to pass it on to him. But there were signs. You had a driver there that was telling you there were problems. You kept saying there were no problems. We're winning every race. There's nothing wrong with the car. You saw people starting to say, well, it looks a little hard to drive in certain type of corners. No, it's good. Max will power through. And I mean, how many times have we seen Red Bull have those weekends where they look horrible in practice and all of a sudden qualifying Max is on pole still?
Yeah.
They were banking and rested on their laurels, and people were talking about it at the race this weekend. Jonathan Wheatley, who's the team principal now over there at Kick Sauber, how do you think he feels? He was in charge of running the pit crew and making sure all these pit stops were 1.9 second stops out of nowhere, and now all of a sudden he's only been gone for what, 3-4 months?
Yeah, he left in the
somehow
off-season.
It fell apart that fast. It's amazing to watch how fast it happened.
It doesn't look good.
I mean, yeah, like you said, going back to Checo and all the problems he had with that second car, and everybody didn't listen to him. Then you go into the 2024 season, he underperforms. Obviously, he had his problems, but a lot of that was due to the car. He was used as a scapegoat. People blame Checo. Now going into this year, after 2024, you were like the Red Bull not doing good, going towards the end of the season. Coming to this year, you choose Liam over Yuki when majority of people thought and known and should have been Yuki. Liam underperforms in the first two races. Now you put in Yuki. Yuki's done everything he can with that second seat. I don't even know what else to say. It's so much.
It's a lot to become the team, to go from the team to a laughingstock right now.
Yeah.
You should be, you're trying to fight for champions. You're not Kick Sauber, you're not Aston Martin, you're not Williams, where you're trying to build your way back up. You were at the top and you dropped. You're the fourth, maybe fifth fastest car on the track right now. But I mean, the only positive I'll say is they got their first double points. So shout out Yuki Tsunoda.
I was about to say,
we're
real
all
quick.
Yuki fans on here.
Yeah.
So before we move on from Bahrain, I got to give my boy Yuki a shout out because he had nice qualifying. He managed to stay in points, finished P9. Red Bull's first double points. That's the only glimmer of hope I can hold on to, is that Yuki's doing well. Max already knows what the struggles are, so maybe them two can put their heads together and create some magic to get the car back up.
I mean, I know it's Bahrain, like we said, all the drivers know, but the fact that Yuki was able to break in points, I'd see this as a good sign that, potentially maybe they can go back and figure something out, and maybe for the rest of the season, keep getting those double points and maybe put you back in the Constructors' Championship. But
We'll
don't
see.
know.
For
Gotta
me,
see.
For me, the biggest thing that impressed me with Yuki, to be honest, was for a person that the main reason Red Bull said they didn't want to put him on there was his hot-headedness. He had an accident with Carlos Sainz earlier in the race that we talked about earlier.
And still managed.
Didn't hear a word from him.
Yeah,
and
that's fair. That's
F1 media would have played that audio if he had tripped out. To me, that was the biggest sign that Yuki has grown. The whole reason they said they didn't want to put him in the car was because they said he was immature. He was not doing anything that, really impressed them. He was always hot-headed. Had an incident. I mean, we saw it a couple years ago in Qatar, I believe, with him and Daniel Ricciardo, where he was getting mad at Daniel Ricciardo saying, what the heck is this idiot doing?
Yeah.
That was just 2 brief years ago. And to see the growth from Yuki to keep his cool, get his points. Honestly, for me, like we were talking about Lawson earlier, I know the car isn't great, but man, Lawson was making that car look worse than what it is, though.
Yep.
Yuki still says he does not have any clue. He's like, I think I know 10% of this car right now. He's still finding a way to make sure that he can get in the points in his second race without having any proper weeks off. This is in the middle of a triple header. He got into this race car and still hasn't had any time in the off time to drive this car besides in practice sessions. So Yuki, shout out from all of us, man. Man, we're just so proud of you just because we knew this is the talent he had. We all knew he should have been given this spot in the first place, and to see him take that opportunity and run with it and see what Lawson has done now since then to prove that it was the right decision to just put him in the car in the first place, can't say kudos enough to Yuki.
Yep. So we'll move on from Bahrain. It was fun. We liked it. We enjoyed it. Way better than Japan. We'll keep our predictions short just because we are running short on time. Or predictions. Podium predictions for Jeddah. I don't know what to expect going into Jeddah because it's supposed to be easier on tires than Bahrain was, but it's still out in the middle of the desert. It's still going to be warm. We'll see. I don't think McLaren's going anywhere. So we'll keep it short. I'm going to predict another win for Oscar. I think he's on a roll. I think he is going to take this momentum. Like I said last week, I predicted him to win. My podium was way off after that, but I predicted him to win. I think he's going to win again, but I think Lando's going to make it close. You're going to have a 1-2. I'm not going to say hopefully because I'm not a Lando fan, but for Lando fans' sake, for the fans of Lando's sake, I think he's going to bounce back. He had a rough weekend mentally. He still managed to finish podium. I think he's back on the podium, 1-2 for McLaren. So you got Oscar first, Lando second, and I think Charles is going to get his first podium and finish P3. George is going to be up there because Mercedes put something in that car. But I think you got Oscar, Lando, Charles wraps it at P3. And I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. Shout out you for the point this week. Driver of the day is going to be Charles Leclerc.
Nice. Oof. Goddamn, man. Shit.
We can pick the same. It's okay, Mark.
I know you took Oscar. And I was like, shit. I'll go Oscar again. I'll go Leclerc second. I got a feeling they'll bounce back, especially Leclerc knowing his talent. And third, I'll go Lando.
Okay.
And are we doing driver of the day right now?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
we'll do Carlos Sainz. To throw a curveball there.
Okay. Yeah, the driver of the day, before we get to Ivan, driver of the day has been weird.
Yeah.
Very weird.
Lewis had a great day, but it should have been someone else. I think every week the driver of the day has had a great race, but it should have been somebody else.
Yeah.
But Ivan, your podium predictions and driver of the day prediction.
Let's make it a clean sweep. I'm gonna have Oscar winning. Saw a stat. Oscar in the brief amount of time he's been in F1 has never lost to Lando at this track. So I'm thinking he keeps that up.
Okay.
Second place, I have. You know what? I'm gonna be a little bit different here. I'm gonna go second place George Russell, third place Lewis Hamilton.
Okay.
The track that he's won at previous times, obviously in the great 2023 season when he had that fight with Max, 2021 season where he had the fight with Max, and so I think he's gonna do good and rebound here. Driver of the day. See, I'm gonna try to predict what all the fans have been doing with their weirdness, so I'm gonna say Charles Leclerc gets the driver of the day.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Charles Leclerc gets the driver of the day, even though Lewis gets the podium because it's been a little wonky this year with driver of the day. Anyway.
It has been an interesting votes, some interesting votes in the first few races. So, we'll come back and report on Jeddah. We'll have a weekend off. Potential watch party for Miami for the locals here in Houston.
Yep.
Stay tuned. More to come on that, hopefully. And any last thoughts going into Jeddah?
Ferrari, please do something.
Ivan?
Alpine, keep up the good work, man. Y'all been doing a great job. Keep it up. And also Carlos Sainz, I know you'll rebound this week. Just need a clean race and points finish from you, buddy.
Only thing I'll say is get it the fuck together, Red Bull. Figure it out, man. Figure it out. Go Yuki. And Williams, get back in the points. My Williams' back agenda is still alive. I need it there. But that's going to be it for us this week. Thank y'all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Apollo HLU. Hit that like button on this video. Drop your podium predictions and driver of the day predictions. We're still keeping score. We're checking the comments. We're seeing who's saying what. And we're going to keep y'all score as well, the fans and the followers. Until next week, go Max Verstappen. We're out of here, guys.
See ya.
See
Red Bull therapy session in the comments.